Hi, welcome to another episode of the Ambient Mellotron here at the Ambient iPad. Let's make some music. For this video, I'm going to use the Bass Flute sound from the Mellotron M4000 sound set. I've been using a lot of M400 sounds lately, woodwinds in particular, and here's another. The signal chain is the Mellotron M4000D Mini. Its analog mono output goes into a Focusrite Scarlett 18i8 interface, which communicates back and forth with the iPad Pro through a USB-C hub, which also enables me to power the iPad Pro at the same time. Now, I've used flute sounds before on the Mellotron. There's three. On this particular one, there's the flute sound from the Mellotron Mark II, there's a flute from the Chamberlin, and the one we'll be using today, which is the bass flute from the M400. So why don't we just run through each of those separately so you can hear them. But first, I need to start a new project in GarageBand. So we're using GarageBand as typical with audio, and I'm not on the right window here. Where's the vocals? So we want voice, turn on monitoring, all the same stuff I usually use. We go to fun because that's where the clean setting is. The other thing I need to do is don't really care too much about the tempo, but I do need to add additional bars with GarageBand. When you open a new project, it defaults to 8 bars, and it's essentially looping those, but it's not really looping because when you get back to bar 1, it overwrites anything that you put on before. So it's not looping, it's not overdubbing, it's erasing, and whatever you just played new goes on. So the easy way around this is you just choose automatic. So as you're recording, it just keeps adding bars and bars until you're done. The other thing I always do, I only do this because the GarageBand does have a Mellotron M400 icon, so why not? Why not add that? We'll add effects in a bit. So that's the bass flute. Let me get into, so with the Mellotron here, you can go into, the normal setting is you have 2 separate instruments you can blend between, and this knob changes the one on the left, this one changes the one on the right, but you can also hold that. Now it's going to index by machine, index by name, or we want by category, and then you press over here, and now we're in category view. So essentially, I can walk through all the different instruments and hear them, and it tells me on top what it is. So let's go up here. Right now we're on the Mellotron Mark II flute. This, of course, is the most famous flute sound, and I always play that same tune all the time. I'm not going to do that today. So that's that one. And then we have the Chamberlin. I've used this on a jam before too. This has a lot of breath in it. It almost sounds like a wood flute at times. And then I already have set up here on the right side is the Mellotron M400 bass flute that we're going to be using today. Sounds closest to the Mark II. Let's go back to the Mark II and we'll go back and forth. To me, the has just a little higher quality to it, which makes sense. The M400 came after the Mark II, and although they did reuse a lot of tapes in the M400 from the Mark II, the bass flute was not used before. Although, to be honest, sounds similar enough. Bass flute down low, the Mark II flute. I mean, they call it the Bass Flute. For all I know, it could be the same tape, and actually there's a way to figure that out, because I've mentioned before because on the original Mellotron, each individual key was an individual tape and thus was an individual recording. So you get different things that happen when whoever they had the player recording might be a little off on pitch. Vibrato might be different. For woodwinds and other instruments might be a little more breath than usual. There's some instances where you can hear a chair squeak, the instrument hitting the mic. There's something like that on the Bass Flute on C. I'm going to play that, and after about 4 or 5 seconds, it's hard for me to tell exactly what it is, but it is not. It's something happened. Well, let me just do that. Right before I turned it off. So crank the volume, you can hear it. It almost sounds like something hit something. But what I want to do is I'm going to play the same note from the Mark II, and we'll hear if it's there. Okay, not clearly a different set of tapes, different recording. Okay, enough of that. So we're going with let's get out of this view. Playlist view. Okay, so we're going to use the M400 Bass Flute. All right, let's add some effects. Today I'm going for a more ambient, big sound. And for effects, I just want a reverb. Well, first thing we do is I do like to add a little bit of GarageBand compression, raises the volume a little, but also does even things out. But not really, maybe that's 20%, 25%. All right, effect EQ is something we always delete. Now, I'm just going to add, a lot of times for these, I've gone back and forth between AudioReverb and Black Hole. For real instruments, I prefer AudioReverb. It just has a little bit more of a natural sound. And there's a lot of options here. So there's a spaces category. We want to go really big. So St. Peter, let's hear what a cathedral sounds like. Okay, actually too big. I don't want that smearing with the tails. I do want things to be kept. And when I go back in here, I got to scroll. It does not automatically go to where I was. Spaces, so Taj Mahal, just by the name, this one's going to be huge too. So you hear that. Everything on the tail is just, they call it smearing. It's just all kind of bundled together, and cool for some things, and I have used huge reverbs on other jams and improvs in the past, but not for this. You know what? Let's try Valley, because this would be like playing the Bass Flute outside in a valley. Let's hear what this sounds like. Okay, I like that, except, let me play that again, and when I stop playing, listen to the tail at the end. There's a little modulation there. So when I let go, right there, you can just hear it modulate right at the end. To me, that doesn't sound natural. And so modulation is on 22%. I'm just going to turn that completely off. So let me try that again. All right, nice. Just fades out, tails out, nice and natural. All right, that's really the only effect I'm going to use. Well, you know what? Let's see what Spatializer does, if anything. Really liking this app. It's fairly new. What, I get a month or so ago, a couple of months ago. I've certainly been using it on every jam, improv track since I got it. It just gives a little more dimension to the sound. Don't really know how else to describe it. And let's turn off AudioReverb to start. I usually use front and back. That's with it on, off. So you can hear with it off, bang in the center, mono. So it's still primarily a mono sound. But because of there's a little delay, a little reverb in there, it just kind of opens it up. The other one I'd like to try is surrounded. And off. All right, so let's turn the reverb back on and see what we've got here. Okay, everything there is set. Let's go into Spatializer. So this is surrounded with the valley reverb. Try it off. So with it off, it's definitely more centered. And honestly, in this particular case, that sounds way more natural to me because it does sound like you're in a valley, and you can definitely hear the player, but then as it kind of goes through the valley, the reverb. So you can pinpoint where the flute starts in the soundscape, and then it opens up. With this, surrounded, it's just a little cloudy, a little dense right in the beginning. Let's try front and back, which is a little more subtle. This is off. And then on. Okay, so that I actually like. It's more subtle than surround. I do usually turn this down a little. I'm going to go even more than I usually do. Let's try 40. That's subtle enough. Does open it up a little. That's our sounds. Again, not a lot of effects, but a big sound here. That'll work. So then maybe a second part that goes in the opposite direction this way. So we do that much slower though in the jam, and then we'll go the opposite direction. That's good. I mean, it's mostly just going to be a very open space ambient thing, but I do like to have a couple of touch points here and there to go back to. That is the entire setup. Very straightforward. Let me do a jam. That improv was definitely on the more ambient side of things. Using the valley setting on audio reverb definitely made it sound like the bass flute was being played outdoors in a big open space, but not so huge that the tails of the reverb were smearing together to make an undefinable sound. I wanted the articulation of the bass flute to come through. I've been doing a lot with the M400 sound set, particularly with woodwinds, and there's still a lot more on the M4000D to explore. So, more videos to come on the Ambient Mellotron. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and good luck with your own music.